morning, everyone. Please be seated. Members of the class of 2013, parents, family members, friends, faculty, and staff. Under sunny skies, at least so far, I welcome you to the Baccalaureate service, and indeed to the entire series of events that will culminate tomorrow morning with your commencement ceremony. After tomorrow, you, our seniors, will be graduates of Washington and Lee University, a distinction you will carry for the rest of your lives that I am sure will be ones of consequence, full of accomplishments that will bring yet further distinction to you and to your alma mater. These are a happy few days, though strange in some ways, roller coasters of emotions, mixtures of formality, such as our gathering here this morning, and informality, such as the packing of rooms and apartments, one more tubing trip down Goshen, and maybe one last visit to the Palms or McAdoo's, at least until Young Alumni Weekend in the fall. There is some sadness in your leave takings and perhaps even a small tinge of anxiety as one chapter of your life reaches its conclusion and another yet to be written chapter looms on the horizon. But let this period be enjoyable with the kind of joy and gratification that comes with knowing you have done well and that you have grown as individuals and become forever a member of a very special and extended community. There is an established rhythm to this series of events at Washington and Lee. They have changed little over the years, at least in our recent history. Tomorrow, of course, is a time of celebration for you and for your parents and family as well. But today is one of reflection and giving thanks. Each of you knows that you would not be here today without the support of family and friends, without the guidance and encouragement of your faculty, without the support of the staff, without, indeed, generations of alumni who have come before you and given of their gifts so that you might benefit from the same experience that so profoundly shaped their lives. And so we gather for this baccalaureate service. It arises from the religious traditions of the university, a university founded by disciplined, thrifty, and strong-willed Scots-Irish Presbyterians. They came to this valley in search of freedom from religious constraint and with a desire to fashion a community of hard-working individuals. From that disposition, they created a place of learning that has always been non-sectarian and non-denominational. The roots of this ceremony go back to the 18th century, and as it was then, it remains a time for us to reflect on how an education shapes the life of a caring individual. For your time here has taught you to share the fruits of your education, to take your life in a direction of service, no matter your career, and to be mindful of ideals that transcend the self. We are honored and privileged to have Professor Harlan R. Beckley, the Fletcher Otey Thomas Professor of Religion and Director of the Shepherd Program for the Interdisciplinary Study of Poverty and Human Capability, as our baccalaureate speaker. Dr. Beckley received a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from the University of Illinois and a doctoral degree in theological ethics from Vanderbilt University. He has taught in the religion department at Washington and Lee since 1974. In 1997, he helped to create and became the first director of the Shepherd Program. And in 1999, he was named the Fletcher Otey Thomas Professor of Religion. In 2002, he received the state of Virginia's highest award for excellence in education, the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia's Outstanding Faculty Award. Dr. Beckley has also served as Vice President and President of the Society of Christian Ethics and was acting president of Washington and Lee University for the 2005-2006 academic year. He is also an inspiring mentor to students, a generous and thoughtful colleague among the faculty, and for me, a friend I greatly admire and respect. We will hear from Professor Beckley later in the program, but I now draw your attention to the members of the university singers. After they sing The Road Home, we will welcome back Burr Datz, former coordinator of religious life here on campus and now Catholic campus minister at St. Patrick's Church, who will lead the ceremony, and we will proceed without further interruption.
Tell me where is the road I can call my own, that I left, that I lost so long ago. All these years I have wandered, oh, when will I know? There's a way, there's a road that will lead me home. After wind, after rain, when the dark is done, as I wake from a dream in the cold of day, through the air there's a calling from far away. There's a voice I can hear that will lead me home. Rise up, follow me, come away is a call, with your love in your heart as the only song. There is no such beauty as where you belong. Rise up, follow me, I will lead you home.
Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing.
Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture.
Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name.
For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations.
This is the day with the Lord, which the Lord hath made.
We will rejoice and be glad in it.
Lift up your hearts.
Lift them up unto the Lord.
Let us pray. Almighty and most gracious God, we awaken to a new dawn, to a world that is charged with your grandeur. You are a true font of light and wisdom, and the primal origin raised high beyond all things. We call you by many names as we gather today, members of a variety of faith traditions, and yet one human family, drawn together by you in love to give thanks. For the bountiful blessings of our lives and of this university, we thank you. We are grateful for the return of our families and friends who surround us on this wonderful day. We pause to pray in thanksgiving for our WNL family, for all university employees who have guided and shaped today's seniors, for the staff who cut the grass, cook the food, and perform varieties of other necessary tasks, for all administrators and all faculty who provide knowledge, inspiration, and mentoring. We pause in silence to honor and remember all those who have suffered the losses of loved ones during this year, including these beloved members of our WNL family who have died in this past year: George Moeller, Bruce Herrick, Linda Hall, Dot Hughes, Westbrook Barrett, Ted Swordsma, Joe Goldstein, Chuck Phillips, Joe Lyles, Jerry Hostetter, Joan Mays, Henry Gayhart, John Wilson, Russ Knudsen, and Pancho Bradley. May your consolation and mercy continue to reassure and comfort all of us who mourn. We pointedly pray today in joy to give you thanks for the gifts that this class of 2013 has provided to this community. They have delighted us with their athletic artistry and with their intellectual capabilities. They have entertained us in art and song, dance and drama. They have enriched the lives of so many through their selfless hearts and voluntary actions on behalf of others throughout Lexington and Rockbridge County. All of who they are and who they yet will become fills us with expectation. The nations of the world are like flowers that sprout and then wither, and all of humanity is little more than dust. Despite natural disasters, political and civil stalemates, far too many shootings and bombings, war and the rumor of war, you never abandon us, eternally shaping us through your loving presence, benevolent kindness, and eternal compassion. You have led this class through trials, tribulations, and many tests these last 4 years, and brought us all to these 2 days of sweet grace. Unite our hearts now to be open to you through song and through the message of our speaker, our friend Dr. Harlan Beckley. Reveal to us our purpose, that our greatest success is found in service to and love of others. Keep us ever mindful that the richness of our lives is directly proportional to the quality of our relationships. Finally, Lord, we ask your blessings upon these soon-to-be graduates. Grant unto them keenness of mind, the capacity to remember well, a hunger for learning, the subtlety to interpret, and eloquent in their speech throughout their lifetimes. Be with them on mountains and in valleys, on sea and in the skies. Make safe every step they take, and with each lying down and each rising up, inspire them so that they may flourish in a good life which is fruitful. Sustain in all of us hopeful hearts, not hardened by hateful violence that assaults us, but strong hearts, tender with mercy and love. In your most sacred name we pray. Amen. Let us read together the word of God, which shows forth our duty, the source of our strength, and the valor of those who have laid the foundations upon which we build. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord.
And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind.
And the Lord said, Ye shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy.
And thou shalt
He hath showed thee what is good.
What doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God?
I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills. From whence cometh my help?
My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth.
He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber.
Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep.
The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand.
The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night.
The Lord shall preserve thee from evil. He shall preserve thy soul.
The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore.
Let us now praise famous people and those that begot us.
The Lord manifested to them in great glory, even his mighty power from the beginning.
Such as did bear rule and were renowned for their power, giving counsel by their understanding.
Leaders of the people by their counsels, and scholars of the people, wise in the words of their instruction.
Such as sought out musical tunes and set forth verses in writing.
Richly furnished with ability, living peaceably in their habitations.
All these were honored in their generations and were a glory in their days.
They had left a name behind them to declare their praises.
And some there be which have no memorial.
But these were people of mercy, whose righteous deeds have not been forgotten.
All will declare their wisdom.
And the congregation tell aloud their praise.
The memorial of virtue is immortal.
God is known with us and with God,
All nations shall come and worship before the Lord.
and shall glorify his name.
He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth.
He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder.
Sing unto God, ye kingdoms of the earth.
Sing praises unto the Lord forever.
Shenandoah, I long to see you. Across the wide Missouri, I long to see your smiling valley and hear your rolling river. I long to see your smiling valley, where we're bound away across the wide Missouri. Since last I see Shenandoah, dear rolling river, 'tis
President Ruscio, distinguished graduates, parents, family members, and other guests, members of the Board of Trustees, alumni and alumni of this institution, and colleagues from the administration, faculty, and staff at Washington Lee. I am deeply honored to speak to you on this occasion. I've never delivered the baccalaureate address. I've heard many, admired some, criticized others. Perhaps that is the reason when my colleague and friend Ken Ruscio invited me to speak, I was initially hesitant to accept. You are, after all, a challenging audience, both knowledgeable and diverse. I asked some of my colleagues if they thought it was appropriate for me to address such an august assembly. They told me, Harlan, when someone has been at Washington and Lee as long as you have, he ought to have something significant to say. I was sufficiently coaxed that I told Ken that I would not only be honored by his invitation, but would do my best to find something appropriate to contribute. My students have persistently reinforced my colleagues' observations about how long I've been at Washington and Lee. One of them, I believe she is present today, recently told me with innocent incredulity that she had heard from someone that when I came to Washington Lee, Richard Nixon was president. She was right. As I was adjusting to this blow to my wistfulness about appearing young, a first-year student emailed to ask if he might interview me. He was writing a paper on the romanticism and radicalism of the 60s, and he needed to talk to someone who'd actually lived through it. I tried to do my best to veil how ancient he made me feel. When someone attains my age, you must indulge him in a few self-referential stories. So allow me to continue for a moment. When I came to Washington Lee for an interview, I was a graduate student at Vanderbilt who had grown up in central Illinois. I knew nothing about Washington Lee except a vague memory of having heard football scores in the 50s. Yes, I remember the 50s also. One of my dear friends, a 1957 graduate of Washington Lee, called me aside to offer guidance. Remember, he advised, the name of the horse is Traveler, not Trigger. The grandparents here today will remember that Trigger was Roy Rogers' horse. I got the job. Maybe it was because I remembered the name of General Lee's horse, but there was no quiz. The appointment was for 1 year. And here I am, 39 years later, and ready to make it 40 before retiring to become the program director of the Shepherd Higher Education Consortium on Poverty. I arrived barely knowing that this institution existed. This morning, I speak to you from this spot due to the good fortune of being another beneficiary of this institution and its people, past and present. I am grateful to the institution and to its employees, students, parents of students, alumni, and other benefactors. My story is also your story. We gathered today and tomorrow to celebrate your accomplishments, and they are worthy of celebration. But our celebration should be accompanied by a sense that whatever we have accomplished depends on the institution that makes it possible and on the people who have nurtured us, judged us, and given us second chances. For you, 4 years. For me, 40. We did not create this institution. It was bequeathed to us. We did not produce all of those who have nurtured us. They received us and placed their trust in us. Washington Lee is not perfect. Sometimes we realize most vividly our dependence when a person or an institution we depend on does not live up to what we perceive we legitimately expect. Those movements remind us how dependent we are and how grateful we should be to the institutions and persons that bring us to days like this one. Nor does our dependence and appropriate gratitude stop with Washington and Lee and those with whom we associate in this community. It includes other institutions, marriage and families, for example, and other persons, parents, grandparents, siblings, spouses, and sons and daughters. I could go on about particular sources for our achievements, but I've said enough to remind us that our generalizations about dependence and gratitude are generated by multiple particular experiences. Remembering the actions of a classmate, parent, teacher, friend, dining hall worker, or even on occasion a dean or security officer that sustained us, sometimes by judging us and giving us a second chance, gives us ample reason for an attitude of thankfulness. We thank the power upon which or upon whom we ultimately depend, but our awareness of this beneficent power arises from many particular encounters. Reminders of our commonality with persons who have not been as blessed by good fortune fittingly evoke a sense of humility and gratitude. I received an email not long ago from one of your fellow alumna, Lauren LaRue Walker. Lauren graduated in 2004. The experience, she reports, occurred while she was the chief resident of the Children's Hospital in Oakland, California. Lauren wrote, "Just wanted to pass along a profound experience I had yesterday. Our church in San Francisco has an outreach program in the Tenderloin, a haven for drug activity, known for its incredible high rate of homelessness despite its proximity to the glitz and glamour of the financial district. I made my way to the outreach center in an effort to give back to my community and to reconnect with it. The center provides clothes, meals, basic medical services, and foot care. Washing of feet, foot massage with lotion, and a pair of clean socks. Halfway through my time there, I joined the foot care team. An African-American gentleman sat down at my station. He rolled up his pants and immersed his well-worn feet in the hot water. I clumsily washed his feet, patted them dry, and then applied lotion and began the foot massage. At this point, we were deep into conversation. He had introduced himself, a San Francisco native with dreams of moving to Chicago. He then mentioned in passing that he had never finished his education, a decision he regrets. He had gone east to school. Where on the East Coast, I inquired. Oh, in Virginia. I perked up. Where in Virginia? Lexington, he replied. at which point my heart was racing. We're in Lexington, Washington and Lee. I am sitting on a stool with his foot in the palm of my hand and my mouth open. I went there too. He gave me a very confused, disbelieving look and asked, "You did? Did you go to the law school?" I assured him, "No. I went to the undergrad as well." He shrugged his shoulders, but I thought it was an all-male school. Turns out, he was at W&L for 2 years in the early 80s. He left for reasons unknown to me, but admitted during the rest of our conversation that going from California to Lexington in the early 80s as an African-American male was a difficult transition. And he had no idea that W&L is a co-ed institution. We chatted about professors, Woods Creek, Graham Lee's, and the beauty of Lexington in the snow. The experience was surreal and humbling, and I think one that warrants being passed on to your students. The details were a little fuzzy regarding his departure from W&L, but essentially, George, a pseudonym, returned to San Francisco, fell into drugs, and was addicted to crack for 25 years. He quit 2 years ago. His mother's passing was his wake-up call. He is incredibly articulate, and his mind is quite clear for someone who has experienced such a toxic past. He still drinks, but is attempting to make his life better. He wants to study journalism and Spanish, which he studied at W&L. Is eager for the support of his family and hopes to move out of his current housing into something more stable. His story chills me. I rarely say this, but I feel like God put me there for a reason. At the end of the exchange, we prayed together. I gave him his pair of pristine white socks, and we shook heads in amazement, and he returned to life on the streets, and I returned to my safe, warm apartment. Few of us have experienced as jarring an experience as Lauren's, and I, for one, could not tell the story with her insight and sensitivity. That granted, Lauren's story vivifies encounters we have had with persons surprisingly like us who have not had the good fortune to receive the institutional and personal support that has enabled us to be here today. All of us know persons who have made mistakes for which they are at least partially responsible, who have not been granted the fraternal correction and forgiveness that we have needed on numerous occasions in order to celebrate this day. Even the honor that we value and cherish is possible insofar as we embody it, largely because of the institution and our friends who support and expect honorable behavior. We need to remember these particular experiences in our lives. They evoke our sense of dependence on others. They reinforce our gratitude for acts of support, redemptive judgments, and forgiveness that propel and sustain us. Perhaps most importantly, these memories help us realize that despite our differences from George's, who struggle usually in anonymity, we and they are united by what I am willing to call grace. I share with Lauren a religious interpretation of her experience and of ours. I am a Christian theologian, although Christian is the adjective and theologian is the noun. In my case and in Lauren's, the talk about God is informed by the story of Jesus of Nazareth and a long and rich, loosely linked, and multifaceted religious tradition. If those of us who are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, and so forth stop to think about it, the riches of our religious traditions are also gifts of grace. I did not create Christianity. I did not even choose to be a part of that tradition. I was born into it and enabled by others to consent to significant parts of it. Parts of my tradition talk about God's saving grace, sometimes universal for all, and sometimes only for those who believe in Jesus Christ. However, this tradition, like other religious traditions, is rich and diverse. The story of Lauren and George can be interpreted in terms of common grace, a blessing of good fortune that orders, sustains, limits, judges, and redeems the lives of all persons, regardless of their religious affiliations. Ironically, this idea of common grace comes largely from the Calvinist tradition within Christianity, a tradition often associated with unrelenting exclusivism. From the perspective of common grace, the brief encounter between Lauren and George may have nurtured, judged, humbled, and redeemed both of them. Neither was saved in that moment. Both may have been partially transformed by an ordering power beyond their control. Both may have been blessed. Perhaps ironically, we do not know about George, but we know that Lauren was blessed to the extent that she was tempted to think of herself as a noble and altruistic minister meeting the needs of others, not, I think, an overwhelming temptation for Lauren. Lauren left that encounter humbled and transformed by her sense of common humanity. She was certainly changed by this encounter with a courageous person seeking to overcome adversity, some of it self-inflicted, that she could only imagine. Perhaps the movement was also redemptive for George. We know that he was partially redeemed by his mother's death. Grace was operative in his life also. We can be sure that the foot washing was redemptive for Lauren. She has written recently that she continues to work at the medical clinic associated with her church and feels guilty she cannot do more, even though she works as the chief resident at the Children's Hospital serving low-income families in Oakland. George cannot take credit for being a vehicle of redemptive grace for Lauren. He did not concoct the encounter. But it was one of those particular incidences in Lauren's life for which she could only offer a prayer of humble thanks. For Lauren, the thanks was to God, although she knew that the church, her cohorts in the congregation, and George were all mediators of God's beneficence. It was also mediated through a Christian ritual of foot washing authorized by Jesus of Nazareth at the Jewish festival of the Passover, as recorded in the Gospel of John. For those of us assembled today, the sense of common grace that nurtures, sustains, judges, forgives, and redeems may be mediated by a myriad of particular events and many religious traditions. It may even be prompted from outside religious traditions. The graduates, who have studied and engaged in this community for the past 4 years surely know that their achievements depend on many factors beyond their control. They have learned that they did not create and cannot control their DNA. The social determinants of their health, education, and skills, or the stunning stories, plays, compositions, and artifacts that evoked insight and emotions they never thought possible. I believe the scriptures, religious traditions, worship, and even talk about God can enrich our lives. However, many of the normative explications and attitudes that emerge from these religious sources are also confirmed and even arrived at independently of religious practice and reason. These explications and attitudes may even be learned in a genetics or a neuropsychology classroom. Perhaps most of us can agree that these graduation days are not merely for celebrating our achievements, but also for recognizing that powers beyond our control and upon which we depend have graced us. However, the acknowledging the power of grace in our lives and the lives of others is insufficient. Gratitude, especially gratitude for the powers that have redeemed us from our mistakes and shortcomings, entails obligations to others. As one theologian observes, to be sustained by the care of others and acknowledge our dependence on orderly processes is to know that orderly processes require our participation and cooperation. Thus, a sense of obligation emerges. We must do more than acknowledge the power of grace in our lives. We should live by it. Lauren Walker clearly feels this obligation, and it is not an obligation born of a sense of superior achievements and altruistic motives to lavish her virtue on those beneath her. She is a humble, grateful, and obligated participant in the orderly processes that have blessed and redeemed her. There is no noblesse oblige in living by grace. There is only the obligation of interactive care for our fellow humans who sustain, redeem, and forgive us. Please indulge me in one more story about a former student. Stacy McLaughlin Taylor, from the class of 2002. When Stacy came to Washington and Lee in 1998, she periodically visited a family in a modest trailer home north of Lexington. In the intervening 4 years, that family's multiple struggles included the father's death. Their economic circumstances degenerated. Stacy flourished while at Washington Lee. She won many awards, was elected homecoming queen, and appeared on the cover of the alumni magazine. She won the Algernon Sidney Sullivan Award as a graduating senior and has subsequently been honored as a distinguished young alumna. During the spring of her senior year, Stacy told me that she would not be able to attend an afternoon meeting because she was visiting the same family she had visited 4 years previously. I was unaware of those continuing periodic visits by one of our, by then, most illustrious student leaders. I thoughtlessly responded that I was highly impressed that Stacy, after all of her accomplishments, still took time to visit this mother and her children. I sought to flatter her by remarking on her selfless investment of her limited time in noble service. I expected her to thank me for the compliment and tell me how important it was for her to give to others. Instead, I received a terse and blunt response. Why wouldn't I go? They are my friends. I was stunned at being so gently and appropriately upbraided. That interaction has been branded in my memory for more than a decade. We, from time to time, hear a Washington Lee graduate pontificate on how he is looking forward to injecting the virtue of honor into an unenlightened world. I have heard some graduates say that they will invest their newly developed human capital to make the world more prosperous. And probably my greatest dismay is to hear Shepherd Program students, and others as well, exclaim their eagerness to bring justice to an unjust world. I confess to succumbing to this last temptation on occasion. If we are informed by a sense of dependence, gratitude, and obligation rooted in acknowledging the role of common grace in our lives, we feel it our duty to participate with others in cultivating honor, including our own. Contribute to shared economic prosperity, and to cooperate with citizens throughout the world in preserving and advancing just institutions. If we are like Stacy, this is not a day to indulge ourselves in the belief that we have created our achievements and can claim with self-satisfaction that they are ours to enjoy. Nor should we consider ourselves generous donors of our virtues and talents to a benighted world. We are enabled by many and should feel obligated as participants with others to sustain the interactive and interdependent care that has brought us to this day. I hope that you graduates will notice two implicit themes in these stories and observations. First, the stories are about what I have learned from your predecessors and you. Even the one among you who reminded me that Richard Nixon was president when I first arrived in Lexington. You are mediators of common grace to me and to many others gathered here celebrating with you. Second, these stories are about me as well as about you. For that matter, they are about all of us in this assembly. We are all graced. We are all dependent on others. We should be grateful, and we should have a deep sense of obligation to be interactive mediators of grace, not only for our fellow humans, but for the entire order that continually sustains and redeems us.
In the shadows of white columns, we stop to hear the chimes. Worn steps on which we linger, slowly yield to time. But when we doubt our future's course, our honor sets us free. A timeless trust in our alma mater, Washington and Lee. As the bells ring out the hour and echo through the halls, we sense in this brief moment the strength within these walls. But when we doubt our future's course, our honor sets us free. A timeless trust in our alma mater, Washington and Lee.
Thank you all. You can remain standing. I have just a few brief announcements before we adjourn. First of all, my thanks to the university singers and Shane Lynch, the director, for a beautiful ceremony today. And thanks yet again to Bert Datz for leading the ceremony, and of course Dr. Beckley, who sure as heck did have something significant to say. So my thanks to them as well. We plan, the weather committee plans for us to be outside tomorrow. In the event that it's close, we're going to have ponchos, some of the 6,000 that we have bought from the local Walmart, under the chairs for the students and the faculty. Umbrellas are advised for those back further. In the event of severe lightning, torrential downpours, and other kinds of natural disasters, we may in fact have to move across the way. So in that very, very small chance that that might occur, I would ask you as we adjourn today to make sure you take one good look around, because if we are banished to that other place, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and just make believe that we're here and not there. For the senior class, in 5 minutes, the Ruthless University photographers have advised me to tell you that in 5 minutes over at the University Amphitheater, right? Kevin is saying that Ruthless University photographer is saying no. That's not the case? Oh, you've already done it. Congratulations. I'm sure it was a good one. There's no second chances now. Anyone who's free later on, parents, family, and graduates, feel free. Kim and I would love to have you drop by the Lee House for a few minutes, but right now we're adjourned. Enjoy the rest of the day and go for lunch. Thank you.